I want to bring on my guest, a longtime mentor coaching client of mine, Trisha Kusinitz.
Yes, that's it. You got it. Hi, Jeff.
Right?
It's good to be here.
Trisha, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. We've worked together. We started in a group program probably like a year and a half ago. We did that for 6 months. And then after that, you continued on working with me one-on-one. Literally, we had that like over the last year when we worked together. So there's a lot of great things that you've not only had to work through in your business and out of your business, but some big achievements you had as of recently as well. Finally, we can talk about that stuff. We'll save the suspense, but I think the lessons you can share along the way would be great. But before we get there, let's rewind back to when we started, rewind back to the spot where you're like, okay, I'm doing this coaching thing. And what brought you to working with me as a mentor? Like, talk about the position you were in, the frustrations you were facing, because a lot of the coaches that, are listening to this, watching this are, in and out of that space. And I wanted, before we start talking about the work you've done and some of the successes you've created, I want to bring them back to that place where you were.
Okay, absolutely. So I finished my program with IPAC, and I was really gung-ho. I was like, I want to do this. This is my thing. I'm ready. I'm going to just give it everything. And I jumped right into another program, a group program, right? And you were facilitating that. And I think it was on our last call that I said, oh, I got it. Everything kind of clicked. And I felt very much like I wish we were starting from now in terms of that group, right? There was a lot for me to get through, right? There was a lot of clarity that I had to gain, and even confidence in myself. So I think at that point was where I said, you know what, I think finally ready. You know what I mean? It was, and it took a long time to, there's information, there's education, there's knowledge, there's all of these things, but then there's that moment where things just click and you're ready to take it to that next step.
Yeah, what would you say that thing, if you can quantify it or talk about it, what did you say clicked for you?
Well, I think one of the things that clicked truthfully was honesty, and getting really honesty, right? And getting really clear with myself about, the reasons that I was doing all of this, really looking back at my own personal journey and what I wanted to take out of that and getting really, really real about it. Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to the spot where when you're starting off, talk about some of the challenges in honing your message and getting started, because you had to get honest with yourself.
Absolutely.
But talk about some of the challenges that, out of the gates, oh my God, I have to figure this out. And
yeah. And there were so many, so many shiny objects, right? There was just so many things that felt like I could do this and I could do that. And, it was really, really wide open. Right. And I kind of went through a bit of that, wanting to coach everyone and everything because I felt like I could, and there's a desire to do this thing and to go big. Right. And what I didn't really see in the beginning was going big actually meant getting really small. Right. And getting really, really, really in that place of, really understanding that it didn't have to be everyone. It was the coaching that I wanted to do was far more reaching when I got very specific about it.
Yeah. What allows you to get more specific? Like, so in other words, getting out of like, oh my God, I want to work with everybody and everything. Right. I don't want to limit myself. But what allowed you to get to the spot where you realized it and accepted it?
I think it was being really authentic, right? And really being honest with myself about why I was here, right? And it was going through some of the exercises that I did with you in terms of, what's the value that I'm bringing? And so pulling in, and part of me was resistant to pulling in from those experiences, right? But once I really got back to, those things, that was the story, right? That was all of the things that brought me here is what makes me an attractive coach to my ideal client, right? Because I get it. I get where they're coming from. I've been there, and I've gotten to, so to speak, that other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get into more specifically what you're doing with your business, talk about your website and things like that. But before we get there, one of the things I've admired about you as one of my mentor coaching clients, especially over the course of, closing in, let's say that 2-year mark, right,
Mm-hmm.
is you've had, and you might laugh when I say this, but
Okay.
You've had an extraordinary amount of patience.
Oh, yeah.
Because you might think, like you often say, like, I don't have any patience. A lot of people will say
Yeah.
that, but
Right.
you've had an extraordinary amount of patience for accepting, and sometimes it was hard to accept, but accepting what's going on in your world, to just do what you can with what you have. And there was no other way of doing it, right?
Right.
So talk about that piece, because I work with so many people, and there's so many people out there, and they've got full-time jobs, and they've, they're moms like you, who are fully responsible. Not that your husband doesn't do anything, right? Like, but in other words, like, you're responsible. The kids stay home from school because they're sick. Like, it's on you.
Yeah.
So talk about how did you manage that psychologically, if you will, but then also tangibly with scheduling.
Right. So psychologically, there is a point of acceptance, right? And there are certain things that they are what they are. I went through, not only am I a mom of 2 young kids, my husband's a firefighter, so his schedule is always up in the air. I was working part-time. That was something that I was holding on to, in terms of not being fully confident in my ability to get out there and do this business. And when it was you, Jeff, who really pushed me to look at that and to say, am I holding myself back by doing this? So that was one thing. It was finally making that clean break and saying, you know what, if I'm in, I'm all in. But it was also just, I have family, my sister, she's been battling cancer for the last few years. And so there are times when, life happens, right? And even though, we have an expectation, I think I say this, right? But I don't want to speak for you, but I can speak, I think, for women, right? We have an expectation to do everything, right? And I found myself looking at, my peers, for example, and seeing what they were doing in their businesses, and, and feeling like I should be doing X, Y, Z. And the reality is sometimes you can't, and sometimes it's just becoming comfortable and getting really real. I got really real about my message, really real about who I wanted to work with, really real about why I was doing what I'm doing, but also really real with what I could do, and coming to accept that. And so for me, it was, kind of looking at, not getting so into the weeds of, I'm going to spend this many hours per day or that sort of thing, but kind of looking at it more collectively and saying, okay, on a weekly basis, I want to do this, and for me, one of my struggles, it's funny you say patience, because I'm not a patient person. I don't really, but I've learned that, first of all, I'm very patient when it comes to clients, right? In terms of this process takes time, right? So I've learned to allow that for myself as well. So
yeah. And that's the things I describe you as, you're an ambitious woman, you're driven, but you're also very resilient as well. Yeah. And I think that resiliency combined with, that cultured patience, can I say that, right?
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
to cultivate it, and you have to learn it, and you have to accept it. Like, those are the pieces that
it's a learned patience, I think.
Learned patience, yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the things with personal stuff with your sister as a mom of 2, husband who's got that schedule. And then also, like, even like you said, you had that part-time job. You didn't want the part-time job.
And they kept wanting more time for me.
Yeah. But then there's the dynamic too that a lot of people go through. It's just like, they have a spouse and is supportive and is caring as your spouse is. There's a reality of the money. So it's like, hey, babe, I want to quit my job. And it's like, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
And so how did you do like the financial piece, because, you know, you've definitely earned money as a coach.
Right.
But what got you through that piece? Because a lot of people that, you know, listening or watching this is like, oh my God, whether they have a job themselves, whether they're a primary breadwinner or a breadwinner in the home, or, you know, their spouse is supporting the home, and now they want to go off on this with it. You know, you have to invest some money, and it's going to take some money before you make money. Talk about navigating that situation.
So it wasn't easy, you know, and it's still not easy necessarily. I think that there has to be a degree of faith, right? And also the ability to be okay with the inconsistency, right? Because I think especially starting out, for me anyway, it's been inconsistent, right? There are really big highs and there are some lows, and, you know, so it's, you know, for me, I was willing to fully accept that. And I think that the reason for that is because in a sense, I hit rock bottom with my last job. And I was willing to go out there and really do whatever it would take to do what I really want to do and to do what I love. And I can't put price tags on that. You know, I was the breadwinner. I worked this job where I, had it was a great salary. However, it wasn't a great life. And, I really have been very willing to say, you know, this is worth it. And I do have, I have faith that, financially things will come. And I also have evidence that that's happening, so it's kind of, I think if you're in it, it's a case of committing to being in it for the long haul. I mean, I remember at one point you said to me, it was really early on, and you said, Trisha, you're getting paid. You're getting paid for what you're doing. You're getting paid to coach. And that's, that's incredible. Some people don't have that right away. And, and that's the thing that I think that, you have to look at it, there's a ladder, right? We don't just go from here to there. Each little rung that you go up, right, makes a difference. And so it's kind of looking at that, obviously you want to keep that whole, you get to the top, but that top might change too, right? So it's really being able to celebrate those, each of those little steps and successes along the way. And that's really been the thing for me, and I think in terms of, like getting my husband on board, he sees what I'm doing. He sees the impact that it's had on me, on our family, and then he also gets to hear it from clients too. So,
yeah. You bring up that word faith quite a bit.
Yeah.
And what I see about this is amongst anything, like you can have faith in certain things, but you had faith in yourself.
Yeah.
You believed in yourself, and you couldn't have done it. And at times, or maybe even the majority of the time, you probably never felt like you had faith in yourself, but like you did, you had to have, because to fight for what you fought for yourself, for your business, for your passions, to leave a great career, and that even though it was great financially, let's say, miserable and the effects of it, and to stand up for yourself, because it's not easy, even though spouses are supportive sometimes in certain ways. It's you have to stand up for yourself, and you have to fight for things that you wanted, and you've gone after it.
Yeah. And I think that, that's where, for my husband, the fact that I was willing to fight for it, he kind of got to see what was at stake and what was important and what this really meant. If I had just said, he might not have been willing to be as supportive.
Yeah. And the relentless nature of it, and the consistency of it. Right. And like I keep hearing from you several times, it's like, you're not just dabbling in it. You're like, you're all in or you're out. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah. And I think that that's really where the change happened for me, and I didn't know it was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to work out. I really didn't. I knew what I wanted to be doing. I had this vision. I had kind of, and I've said this to you many times, even when I talk about my ideal client, I don't have the exact words, but I know who she is, and it's like,
Yeah.
so, but I have this sense of it, and I just had to believe in that. And, so far it's been pretty good.
So good. Yeah. So great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one thing. Like there's this big event that you had probably a couple weeks ago now, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't have the time to go into the details. 'Cause I feel like the last it's been
a wild ride.
Yeah. So in summary, bottom line is that there's this event that finally actually happened.
Yeah.
That's been needless to say, a big challenge to go through.
Yeah.
Great opportunity, great payday for you as well. But in order for you to make it happen, it was so much work.
It was.
And to not with all the details of the challenges and the people involved, et cetera, but just if you can, like the resiliency I saw and with the length of time that you fought to get there, and as much as, let's say, you made on that day, it shows you that, wow, if you would actually culminate like an hour, the energy you put in, it actually probably would work out to very little, right?
3 cents an hour.
Yeah, right. But people might look at it like, oh, you get paid X amount of dollars for this day of training or whatever. But what I was most impressed with you is that you never gave up.
Right.
You never gave up, and it worked out in the end.
Yeah.
And what is it about you like that keeps you going? Talk about that drive, that all-in nature of you. It's this and everything we've talked about. Talk about like what is it? What qualities attributes you feel you possess that's necessary that just doesn't allow you to quit?
Oh boy. Well, I want to succeed. I want, but it's so much more than just my success, right? So I had this client who saw that I'd been working with for some time, and she saw an opportunity to bring what we were doing to her team. And I just saw it as this great potential, there was just so much good that could come out of it. But of course, the saying, right? The road to, good intentions, right? So we know that. So I just felt that, in the moments where it was really challenging, and believe me, I definitely, and you know this, I thought about walking away because is it too much? Is it worth it? It's stressful, all of these various things. But I kept going back to walking the talk, right? So what am I, what is my purpose with my clients? What am I trying to do with them? And I'm trying to help them to, remove their obstacles, right? To speak up and own their voice, to own their power, right? And so instead of, I had an opportunity where I got this email, and the email was, knee-jerk reaction was, I was mad, and I could have responded to it very defensively. And I did at first. I didn't send it, but I started drafting an email, and then I started thinking about, what's the opportunity in this here? What can I bring to the table that's different? And I thought of it as a coaching moment. How can I teach these people that are creating this issue and looking at everything from this very, limited point of view, very negative viewpoint? What can I bring to it? Mm-hmm. And it was going out on a limb, and I think, again, that's, a quality about me that I'm willing to take that risk, right? Especially if I feel like the payoff, right? And I don't just mean financially, but, this was something that was, at the end of the day, when I closed on the last day of the workshop, it was a standing ovation. I mean, it was just such a moment of, it was worth it, and it was worth it. It was a good payday, sure, but it was worth it in terms of, the different way of thinking, the opportunity for connection, and just kind of this catalyst for growth for this team. And it was amazing to be part of that. And, I had that sense that this is something that if we can pull it off, will be great. And, and I was, I guess patient, in all of that.
Patience, but also that you do a lot of internal coaching, like
Yeah.
hearing you see that, but you find ways that when you're locked into something and you see something that's a big why for you, you
Right.
go after it and you don't back down. And
Right.
and your business being one of those big things.
Absolutely. And I learned a lot through that whole process, and I certainly know that I won't do certain things that way again.
Yeah.
But I also learned that it wasn't worth me, belaboring it, or, it was just always keep it moving, keep going forward, and definitely I don't do those things. I won't get into that kind of a situation where, I'm fighting as much. But, again, it comes with experience. I would not have known that had I not gone through that all. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Before we wrap up and talk, I want to talk about your business and show people your website and everything like that. Share briefly, like, what do you feel for you has been the value in our work together with that mentor coaching?
You have helped me so much get out of my own way. Really. And you said to me at one point, we were talking and you mentioned something about that I was second guessing myself or something along those lines. And that wasn't really something I was seeing, right? Because and I don't know that anybody's really challenged me on that, because I'm passionate and I have strong convictions and I have opinions, right? But you helped me to really see that, it didn't really necessarily matter all that external noise. It was what I was doing. So and you helped me to get clear on a lot of things, Jeff. You really did. I appreciate that.
It's been awesome working with you.